Imagine the sun rising over the hills of Uganda. The air smells of wet soil and fresh cassava. Birds are chirping in the distance. Farmers are already in the fields, tending their crops, moving with a quiet purpose. Today, I want to tell you a story about two young men from Kampala, two farmers, two friends, and two very different paths in life. Their names were Peter and Samuel. They grew up in neighboring villages, went to the same agricultural school, and inherited land from their families. Both dreamed of making their farms flourish. Both wanted a better life, but 20 years later, their lives looked nothing alike. One had built a legacy of wealth, security, and influence in the community. The other was still struggling, season after season, always reacting to the weather, the pests, and the market prices. The difference between them was vision. After they graduated, Peter and Samuel sat under a large mango tree, their shoes dusty from walking across the fields. Peter rubbed his forehead, the midday sun beating down, and said, "Samuel, I just want a farm that makes money now. I'll plant maize, I'll plant beans, and I'll sell it all immediately. I'll worry about the future later." Samuel shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "Peter, I'm thinking bigger. I'm thinking about coffee, vanilla, maybe even fish ponds. It will take time, yes, but the farm and our children will benefit for years and years to come." Peter let out a short laugh. "Children, Samuel, I'm still figuring out how to survive next season." Peter's mother, who was sitting nearby with a basket of cassava, spoke softly. "Peter, don't rush. But maybe think of more than just today's meal." Samuel's father patted his son on the shoulder. "That patience you have, Samuel. It will grow strong roots, just like your land." Pause for a moment. Imagine you're standing there, looking out at those two plots of land. What would you choose? The quick, immediate income, or planting for the long term? 3 years later, Peter's farm looked like a roaring success. He had sold his maize and beans quickly, bought himself a motorbike, and even put a new iron roof on his house. Neighbors would point and praise him. "Look at Peter," they'd say, "he's doing so well for himself." Samuel, meanwhile, was still struggling. His coffee plants hadn't matured yet. Some of his chickens got sick. The fish ponds he'd dug needed constant care and attention. It was a slow, difficult grind. One morning, Peter walked across the dusty path to Samuel's farm. He took one look around and shook his head. "Why are you still planting coffee and vanilla? Maize and beans make money fast. You're just wasting your time." Samuel wiped the sweat from his brow and replied calmly, "I'm planting roots for the future, Peter. One season won't decide our lives." Peter snapped back, his voice rising, "You'll never make it at this rate. Look, even your chickens look skinny." Samuel sighed, glancing at the muddy ponds. "Maybe, but these chickens will multiply. And the coffee. One day, it will provide a steady income for years. Patience, Peter. That's all it takes." That evening, Peter went home feeling proud. But his wife, Grace, looked at him with concern in her eyes. "Do you really feel proud of this, Peter?" "Of course. We're eating well," he replied. "Yes," she said quietly. "But what about next year, or the year after that? What happens when the rains fail?" Peter didn't have an answer. 7 years later, a brutal dry season hit the region. Peter's maize crop wilted under the scorching sun. Pests attacked what little was left. The price of fertilizer had gone up, and his motorbike needed expensive repairs. His income, once so reliable, was now shaky and uncertain. Meanwhile, Samuel's farm was thriving. His coffee trees, with their deep roots, stood strong against the drought. His vanilla vines climbed neatly on their supports. The poultry and fish were healthy. His simple irrigation system hummed softly, a lifeline in the dry landscape. He walked through his fields with a calm, confident smile. Peter came to Samuel one morning, the frustration and defeat written all over his face. How is everything still working for you?" The rains failed, but your farm looks better than ever." Samuel chuckled softly. "Because I built for the long-term: diversification, irrigation, soil care. It's slow, and it's hard work sometimes. But it's built to survive the storms that crush the impatient." That night, Peter's wife whispered to him in the dark, "Maybe it's time to think like Samuel. Our children will inherit your farm one day, too. Do you want them to struggle like this?" Peter lay awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining the same failed rains happening again next year. And then, the year after that, something inside him finally shifted. During the next harvest season, Samuel invited Peter and his family over to his farm. Children ran laughing between the coffee trees. The delicious smell of fresh cassava and fried fish drifted from the kitchen. Chickens clucked happily around the yard. Peter's children stared wide-eyed at the fish ponds, watching the fish swim. Samuel's young daughter proudly said, "Papa says we have to take care of the land now, so it will take care of us later." Peter looked at his own children, and a wave of realization washed over him. He hadn't been thinking that far ahead at all. He finally turned to Samuel and asked, his voice humbled, Could you teach me, even just a little?" Samuel smiled warmly. "Of course, you can learn, but you must be willing to change. Visionary farming isn't easy. Your old comfort is the enemy of your new growth." By year 15, both men were respected farmers in the community. They were asked to join the leadership of the local farmers' cooperative. Peter hesitated. He wanted the recognition, but he feared the responsibility. He still avoided change, preferring the familiar crops he'd always grown. Samuel, however, embraced the role. He introduced new ideas, like irrigation systems, crop rotation, and better farming tools for everyone. He shared his knowledge freely with his neighbors. He even faced criticism. Some of the older farmers complained, "Why change what our ancestors did?" Samuel would reply respectfully, "We honor our ancestors by learning from them, and then improving upon their work. We must plant for today and for tomorrow." Peter watched quietly from the sidelines, realizing that true leadership wasn't just about being liked, it was about creating a lasting impact. 20 years had passed since that day under the mango tree. Peter was still farming maize and beans. He was still struggling with pests, unpredictable weather, and fluctuating market prices. Stress was a constant shadow in his life. Samuel, on the other hand, ran a thriving, diversified farm. He had coffee, vanilla, poultry, fish, and vegetables. He had a solar-powered irrigation system, compost systems to enrich his soil, and even his own processing equipment. He had built not just a farm, but a legacy of wealth, stability, and influence in his community. Peter turned to Samuel one evening as they watched the sunset paint the sky. "I should have listened when I was younger," he said, his voice full of regret. "I see it all so clearly now." Samuel placed a supportive hand on his old friend's shoulder. "It's not too late, Peter, but you must be willing to change. Vision always requires patience. Now, take a moment. Think of your own farm, your career, your finances, your family, your health. Are your choices like Peter's, chasing short-term comfort and quick wins? Or are they like Samuel's, sowing patiently, planning for decades ahead? In Uganda, farming is life. And life, just like farming, rewards those who think ahead. The difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one isn't talent or luck, or even just hard work. It's vision. Short-sighted thinking protects today's comfort. But visionary thinking builds tomorrow's legacy. So, the next time you plant your crop, make your next investment, or make your next big life choice, ask yourself this one simple question. Am I just reacting to the present? Or am I actively building the future? The future doesn't belong to the farmer who maximizes this season's profit. It belongs to the farmer who sees decades ahead and has the courage to act on that vision today. And just like Samuel's farm, your life can grow beyond anything you can currently imagine. You have the patience, the courage, and the vision to see it through. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more content like this.